with the real work of the new year now underway and the reality of January now setting in for the newly re-elected president, that means a new team for a second term. And for Americans, today that meant the announcement of a new national security team, the people charged with protecting the country in the midst of a very turbulent world. But Washington is a turbulent world all its own. And so, like everything else, politics and personalities played a big part in what you're about to see. As for one crucial outgoing member of the president's team, we saw Secretary of State Hillary Clinton back on the job today for the first time in weeks.
I'm proud to announce my choice for two key members of my national security team. Chuck Hagel for Secretary of Defense and John Brennan for Director of the Central Intelligence Agency.
John Brennan has worked for 25 years with the CIA on missions in the Near East and South Asia, as well as Station Chief in Saudi Arabia.
If confirmed as director, I will make it my mission to ensure that the CIA has the tools it needs to keep our nation safe and that its work always reflects the liberties, the freedoms, and the values that we hold so dear.
Chuck Hagel's leadership of our military would be historic. He'd be the first person of enlisted rank to serve as Secretary of Defense.
And not unmindful of the immense responsibilities that go with it. I'm also grateful for an opportunity to help continue to strengthen our country and strengthen our country's alliances and advance global freedom, decency, and humanity as we help build a better world for all mankind.
President Obama made clear today just how important this nomination is for the country.
My most solemn obligation is the security of the American people.
Through decades of war and peace, the job of Defense Secretary has had profound implications.
If force is to be used, Saddam Hussein would be removed from power.
Chuck Hagel knows the horrors of war firsthand. At 21, a poor kid from Nebraska, he volunteered to go to Vietnam, fighting side by side with his 19-year-old brother Tom. He got 2 Purple Hearts, one when shrapnel ripped open his chest and his brother dragged him to safety, another a month later when Hagel, himself on fire from a landmine, rescued his brother.
I was on the left side where the major blast came up and I was burned all up and down the left side of my body. So I grabbed Tom first and he was out and he had blood coming out of his ears and his nose, and you don't have time to think about is he dead or alive.
But critics are not focusing on Hagel's military service. While serving as a Republican senator, he angered some in his own party for not backing the troop surge in Iraq, not supporting unilateral sanctions against Iran, and what some on the Hill perceive as a lack of support for Israel.
After a nomination by the president always comes the confirmation in theory, but first up is a hearing by the Armed Services Committee and only then the vote by the whole Senate. And in that hearing, that is where we'll see the tough questions aimed at Chuck Hagel, the former senator from Nebraska. Those questions including, is he committed enough to the security of Israel? Is he tough enough on Iran? And this is now almost a political campaign to either get Chuck Hagel in the position at the head of the Pentagon or to get him out of there and to make him fail in that hearing. For example, there is now a domain name that has been taken over by a group called the Emergency Committee for Israel. That domain name is chuckhagel.com.
Some Democrats are withholding support for now, and many Republicans on Capitol Hill are slamming the president's choice.
This is an in-your-face nomination by the president to all of us who are supportive of Israel.
GOP critics question Hagel's support for Israel, and specifically for unilateral U.S. sanctions against Iran.
Not only has he said you should directly negotiate with Iran, sanctions won't work, that Israel must negotiate with Hamas, a organization, terrorist group that lobs thousands of rockets into Israel. He also was one of 12 senators who refused to sign a letter to the European Union trying to designate Hezbollah as a terrorist organization.
White House officials say Hagel's record on Israel is solid and point to his support of Iran sanctions pursued by the U.S. in conjunction with other countries, which President Obama referenced as he announced the nomination.
4 years ago, John Brennan had to pull his name out of consideration to be CIA director because liberals didn't think that Brennan had done enough to dissociate himself from the Bush administration's interrogation policies. Now, his nomination and that of Chuck Hagel are going to raise new questions about the direction in which President Obama wants to take the nation on national security.